The Curse of Immortality by Danny Shiva. Within states of mind, shuttling from dimension to existence, the messages of peace seem discounted of pleasure. Wonderment of the tangible substances and emotional satisfaction lure the soft of heart toward an originality of viewpoint or coloring. Take, for example, the songs of ministers. They travel the air in their invasions of space, altering fabrics of passive resistance by a perception of fallen reality, due to an ethical standard based upon the punishments of variable disobedience. Yet, as those who stand ready to arm them all with the words of contriteness and spite, bands of neglected followers shout and cry for the validation of that which can never be born of men. To those who seem incapable of startling the basis of reality, a negative reaction pulling philosophical triggers, tearing the proverbial roof off their personal perspective, reveals a sense of wisdom in seeking after non-corporeal non-existence. Their own viewpoints work against their reflection of an unconscious desire to obtain emptiness, since reinforcing the Ein Sof will never crown the darkness with supremacy. For, as all mystics can attest, this is not the end of the world. Will the real rulers of society stand in opposition to the exhaustion of matter? A substance of hope keeps its continuation, and the circles of power, nonagenetic, breed the rebellious ideologies, which demand the right to maintain a continuation of valor in destructive behavior. A self without pain, a mighty blade coursed with flowers and thorns, and a trickling sea of disgust perform their final duties of pleasing coldness. In spite of all their belief, I can hear their final breath. I wish to stand with them to demand of the crowd an answer to their limitless confusion. I was a child, determined to understand the walls of memory, a bubble of culture and programming, to create yet another automatonic method of interpersonal conflict. Who was I to attempt to change the systems laid by thousands of angry men? Wishing, I was, to place determination into hands of folly, breaking a million words, to help the invasion move toward a final goal, any goal. Perhaps, as I sometimes ask, the opinionation of backward jealousy cannot differentiate bonds of linguistic innuendo unknown to innocence, betrayal, discord, or a manic suggestive trance not ready to undermine years of slavery. They cry for an agenda conducive to their own understanding, because 19 immortal philosophers watch the evil with a blackened eye and salivating death. Fire rises to greet my minute vision of their cordial welcome. Too many times the populations of agreement look for the lowest common denominator by which to stand, since all men run toward a laziness of faith. To read the books of pre-incarnate racism, languages of malice birth, education, to a lateness of creation notwithstanding harmonious grasp of a illumined misunderstanding, the freedom of our own irrational, unempirical religion. The presence of reality, the truth of principle, searching and yearning to complete the message of a blazing sun, a collective mind forms its own rule of law to only benefit the sense of absolute endurance. Substantial community of raised consciousness attempts to overthrow the prophecy of Babylon constructed 10,000 years prior to the self-awareness of an empty universe. How, they ask, can a pure vacuum ask itself its identity if it lacks the necessary energy of matter by which to vibrate such a complicated and difficult contemplation? Their lack of simplicity manifests the first stone by which the sages of the future lay their progressive work. In a field of monstrous vegetation, demolishing all semblance of nature and chaos, a lonely elder god speaks the rhythms of darkness to the vile architects of reason. Extinction, absence, abstracting all thought and imagination into a spectral commandment yet to be translated. Their secrecy in open daylight confounds the wise to look for meaning within their non-existent mind. As the temple tears flesh off the bone, not to worry, for they shall willingly accept unbirth, banished and vacant, for the lies become the altar of disastrous limitation. Greed forms from the silence of a conscious mind. And, so they now say with little regard to their own personality, a God extinct by the displacement of justice shall rise to benefit crazy shelters of those denying a spectral awareness. This was not written nor spoken, but built to stand as an eternal consequence to the light of a reason too shy for a billion years of aptitude. The builder projects an unblemished thought by random pieces of spinning plagues in the quantum treason. Yet, may I so say, the lines of the wisest men parade around the structure, pleading the crowd to envelop their lives by their accession to the wise and their interpretation of this most puzzling omen. The nihilist of the old age demands its ancestral source. The demons listen too carefully, for the darkness in which they dwell shall guide them to the stones of truth. It is not too late to rebuild the palaces, for the crowd shall become their own prophecy, as the lords of grayer skies once spoke to children, chained and hungry. The vision of the missing foundation slowly undermines the chance of grateful satisfaction, for the armies of invisible parasites left the passage alone. It is not the waterfall of Giza, a lonely man shrieks. The boulders horizontally float amidst the stations of a collapsing view. I have tried too hard to interpret the frozen mystery of this inferior illusion. May the war which shall follow slaughter the innocent to keep the despicable alive. Therefore, in the future, which, in the mind of those who exist in the future, is the present, I shall stand to declare the various sentences upon a civilization lost in the absent fulfillment of a dead prophecy. The intrinsic nature of truth shall reveal the tangible reward for its belief, since man will not accept verity without an intelligent reason or reception of gain. Because of the lack of the desire to acquiesce to truth for the sake of truth itself, reality shall continue to exist for the sake of convincing man to believe in its essential principle. The will of man is weak, and the constitution of the heart of man varies from one emotion to another. So I shall deny to all the exhaustion of self by which one may attain true enlightenment. For, as we all know, every system of rational philosophy and mystical indeterminate being couches itself with the promise of lasting fulfillment, whether in comprehensive understanding of reality and its meaning, or the coming of a paradise by which all desire and joy perpetually manifests. Without a hope of personal reward, man perceives no rationale to allow truth to indwell consciousness. For this purpose, the prophets of the future, which in itself is the present, shall divine truth with no reward or reason to believe. If truth is, then the fool shall be wise for accepting its maxims in absence of any relief from the presence of satisfaction. And as I continue to establish a law that is not law, there shall be no rest nor relief from perpetual existence, since the desire of man shall continue in either state of understanding or enlightenment. The crowd of folly leaps in agreement to unite against an ideology of an anguishing truth, which, in their perception, grounds itself on a continual basis of eternal strife without glory. Yet this is the foundation of a universe vibrating the fields of curiosity, as so many in the past warned us all concerning the possibility of an unfulfilled life. Shall experience itself prove to be as much of a disease upon this universe as our own consciousness? A young man, rich with events and cultures by which his mind fails to understand anything, seats himself with the questions to puzzle his being. If truth yielding a reward intrinsically is more truthful than one which promises nothing, yet truth without reward is more akin to the intrinsic nature of the universe, shall I live by a hatred of hope in order to appear more consistent with reality? In a great castle, he continues to say, I have seen with my own eyes a universe appear to bless all with whatever hope they perceive, with the benefits of their respective truth. Shall I cease my strife to discern which truth is superior? For I only desire the greatest reward from the greatest truth, so I may live a miserable and fateless existence? And without hearing any syllables from my lips, the young man brandishes his scimitar and thrusts it deep inside his chest. To stand in the sight of such barbarism feels uncomfortable, and I try not to find the deeper meaning of either the event or my reaction. The birds continue their search for a free meal, provided by a natural machine of oxymoronic chaos, and my own fuel supply within my mind desires a desire to desire desire. His corpse already wastes itself in its bondage to eternity. I scream at his death, stand therefore and be cursed with the life of meaning and purpose. And his eyes open to perceive his jealousy. A figure already stiff in rigor mortis rises without a sound, bleeding yet beating his heart with the morality of total contemplation, and continues to seek more questions while ignoring my presence, for I am the one he believes killed his very self. Thinking of a story or tale without contingency or crisis, I wander to declare what I knew when I dwell in tomorrow. Stopping to satiate the clenched stomach of physical hunger, I imagine a light penetrate the center of my field of vision, and as it expands into a tear within the fabric of reality, which appears as two-dimensional to me as a linen sheet without stain, I see a figure declaring its presence to me through its attempt to blind me with its infinite radiance. I am unaffected. I am the bearer of light, it says with a voice slicing deep within my painful head. You are, it continues, a reflection of me, yet you stand absent of my glory. Go, it commands, and reobtain that which you relinquished, and by doing so, join me in eternal limitless light where we may exist perpetually apart from the darkness of mortality. Out of curiosity, I step through, for it is now when this visitation occurred, and visit the realm beyond this universe of sorrow. No questions, therefore no answers. I will choose the time of my reappearance. In the fields of vision, the conception attends to the perception of itself, questioning the nature of its identity. With the tools necessary to project its consciousness, an external point of reference manifests to act as a reflective source by which it may discover itself. However, at the moment of its satisfaction, another point projects itself as a source of contemplation. The enemies of duality, living in the past, shake their proverbial fists in anger at the existence of 2 points of reflection, and the 2 points join into a singularity of tension and relief. The eye peers through its frame of reference, led by its curiosity, and this is what it saw. A wise man says to the darkness, if I travel faster than my source, then I will become the mass of all matter. His imagination assumes his perception as perpetually traveling faster than his source, and he becomes the universe. Yet he discovers his body full of affliction, and he regrets his imagination. Unfortunately, since he cannot accelerate to a constant speed, he certainly cannot decelerate. Therefore, he declares, I will project facets of thy being to manifest consciousness to share my misery, for this will evaporate my suffering. In fact, he continues to muse, I will abandon my own consciousness to prevent any attempt by my projections to convince me to cease their suffering. As he forgets his identity, the universe does not know of its freedom from affliction, which it projects into a trillion million reflections of itself. And the curse of immortality spreads to every particle of consciousness. The doom of eternity speaks to your spirit, and, fortunately, you cannot hear.